Imagine the scene: a towering figure, muscles rippling beneath the bright lights, lifts a brand new wedding band for everyone to see, and the sold-out arena roars its delight. That's Tyrus, George Murdoch's ring name, who is well known to millions as the opinionated voice on your favorite television panel and the dominant force in the squared circle. However, Tyrus' recent marriage took center stage last weekend, overshadowing political debates and championship belts. And no one anticipated his new marriage. Today, we reveal a tale of intense romance, a secret relationship, and one unexpected woman who now goes by his last name. George Murdoch, the son of a pastor, grew raised in a small Texas hamlet where Tyrus's path to this altar moment began. He learned two things as a child: discipline and faith. His mother's tender hug taught him empathy, which would later characterize his on-camera magnetism, while his father's lectures on the pulpit ingrained in him an unyielding work ethic. Despite being taller than his peers at 6 feet 8 inches and 350 pounds, Murdoch maintained his composure by strengthening himself through weightlifting and high school football. When college recruiters called, they were hoping to find a football star, but George had other ideas. He longed to be a performer, to command attention by standing in front of audiences. After enrolling in WWE's developmental division in 2009, he went under the stage name Brodus Clay and made waves as the unstoppable dancing giant known as the Funkasaurus. Fans soon began laughing at his vibrant clothes and chanting along to his theme tune. However, George's competitive fire raged beneath the fun. He peeled away the funk and reappeared in a new promotion as Tyrus, a meaner, leaner version with a steely look and an unrelenting smashmouth style after WWE creative booked him off television. He established himself as a mainstay in Impact Wrestling by using simple power moves that made purists think of classic bruisers to kill mid-carders. The shift to punditry followed. Tyrus applied that same level of energy to Fox News shows, analyzing political unrest with a blend of humor and unadulterated emotion. He advanced swiftly through the ranks, becoming a permanent panelist after serving as an infrequent fill-in. His one-liners caused a stir on social media, and demand for his appearances increased. Tyrus was scheduling additional flights to Washington, D.C. by 2022, as opposed to wrestling matches. But despite his stardom, he was unable to find true love in the spotlight. Tyrus's romantic life was the subject of years of rumors. Video clips showed him having coffee with co-hosts and joking for too long to be strictly professional, and tabloids suggested that he had late-night meetings with co-workers. However, he refused to acknowledge or deny romances, protecting his private life like a championship belt. To keep his concentration fresh, he would deflect with jokes about staying single and flash that trademark smile whenever the topic came up on air. Tyrus, the unstoppable force, was never beaten and never pinned, leading many followers to assume that he was also unbeatable in love. Then, rumors surfaced on social media right after Valentine's Day. Tyrus was spotted leaving a posh hotel with an unidentified woman. Coincidence? The Fox News star was wearing a gold band. Finally, a proposal video featuring Tyrus on one knee and the brilliant skyline behind him surfaced online, littered with rose petals. The caption merely said, "She said yes." Speculation sprung out right once. Who could win over a man who had dominated two very visible stadiums for 10 years? Theories exploded on the internet. Was she another reporter? Another wrestler? Or someone completely unrelated to him? Then the shocking news broke yesterday. Ariana Tatum, a young gospel singer who met George 2 years ago at a Houston church event, is the bride. Though she followed a very different path, this woman shared his beliefs. Ariana's vocal prowess moved viewers while Tyrus showed himself in the ring. Despite being praised by critics as the next generation's Whitney Houston and having a first album that topped gospel charts, this celebrity talent avoided reporters and, like her husband, kept her personal life extremely quiet. It reads like a best-selling book about their courtship. George was asked to MC a breakthrough performance at the Nigerian American Gospel Awards, where they first met. As she took the stage, she referred to him as Brother George. He introduced her as "my inspiration, Ariana Tatum." After an off-camera interaction, they had coffee and then late-night video chats that lasted until midnight. Preaching, exercise routines, and aspirations of working together in ministry brought them together. In heartbreaking songs, he found courage in her vulnerability, and she appreciated his genuineness on political shows. They supported each other during the pandemic. She would record lullaby covers to keep him grounded, and he would recite morning affirmations. Both fan bases were shocked to learn of the engagement. Disbelief erupted on wrestling forums. Tyrus marrying a Grammy-nominated gospel singer? Gospel groups celebrated. She's found a partner who respects her faith and supports her calling. And a bridge between two frequently disparate worlds appeared, presenting a pair with unwavering core values and mutual commitment. I did not see that coming. We'll go into more detail about the extravagant wedding festivities in the following part, including the cathedral's special LED-lit stained glass projections of their life together and the who's who of performers and commentators on the guest list. We'll look at the gorgeous jewelry collection Ariana debuted and discuss how they incorporated rap beats into church hymns throughout the reception. We'll also examine the social media frenzy that surrounded their first dance, in which Tyrus, decked out in full ring regalia, fastened his tie to his trunks and glided across the floor in a moment that perfectly encapsulated their combination of elegance and force. As guests filed down the aisle, they passed panels of video montages, George lifting championship belts, Ariana receiving gospel awards, and quiet moments of prayer together on a worn church pew. The Grand Cathedral, with its soaring arches bathed in soft lavender light and backlit by custom LED stained glass projections that traced George and Ariana's journey from first encounter to I do, looked unlike any sanctuary before it. As the couple stood under a hand-carved oak canopy, surrounded by tall arrangements of white calla lilies and tumbling orchids, the aroma of fresh magnolias blended with a hint of sandalwood incense. Ariana's six-piece gospel choir rushed in, their voices rising in harmony until the walls seemed to gleam with pure ecstasy, after a group of string players played a gentle rendition of Amazing Grace. The roster of guests resembled a constellation of well-known figures from pop culture and public life. Gospel greats Kirk Franklin and Tamela Mann offered their blessings alongside pastors from Houston and Nashville, while WWE icons Shawn Michaels and Mick Foley stood side by side with Fox News co-workers Harris Faulkner and Jesse Waters. George Murdoch's father, seated proudly in the front row, cheered and nodded in a whisper when former President George W. Bush made an unexpected appearance. While religious organizations knelt in prayer, wrestling fans waited anxiously for autographs. With elaborate pews crammed closer together than any arena, two universes collided in brilliant oneness at that very instant. George and Ariana exchanged vows in their own handwriting after a blessing delivered by the preacher. Her pledge to stand by you in every ring life places us received a standing ovation, while his commitment to defend your heart like I defend a title belt brought tears and laughs. Then came the rings. Ariana's engagement ring gleamed with a perfect pear-cut diamond flanked by two emeralds, her birthstone, and a tribute to George's Texas heritage, while George's band was a broad tungsten cuff encrusted with black diamonds, mirroring his hallmark power moves. The emeralds gleamed between them like unspoken vows as the jeweler, who had been flown in from Antwerp, revealed each heirloom-quality gemstone to a collective gasp. The ensuing reception was an exquisite demonstration of contrast framing. Under lantern-lit bistro lights, 7 long banquet tables at one end of the hall served Southern comfort food, including buttery cornbread muffins, smoked brisket, and crawfish étouffée. Sleek cocktail stations at the other end served black truffle arancini and caviar-topped blinis under contemporary chandeliers. The dessert bar, where gospel-inspired cupcakes and chocolate fountains with a lot of bass served as delicious interludes between the first-course motivational speeches, was adorned with a neon sign that said, "Love, Faith and Funk." Reflecting the couple's two different pasts, the music lineup alternated rap-infused remixes with gospel hymns. Ariana's passionate performances of Total Praise were accompanied by powerful beats from DJ Envy, who then accelerated the tempo as the gospel choir and guest rappers Lecrae and T-Pain took impromptu turns. The lights went down and there was silence at midnight when George appeared in a custom-made tuxedo jacket with gold thread embroidery that said, "Mr. Murdoch" on each side. Taking him to the dance floor, Ariana, wearing a beautiful white jumpsuit with pearl fringe, held out her hand. They surprised everyone with their first dance. After fastening his tie to the belt loops of his fitted wrestling trunks, George threw Ariana into a spin that combined her grace as a gospel singer with his ring prowess. As they sank and rose to a live mashup of "Oh Happy Day" and "When I Fall in Love," cameras flashed. Some people wiped away their tears, while friends applauded. It was a marriage of flair, faith, and humor, equal parts holy celebration and power move. Photographers documented every event, from Ariana's sister's spontaneous mohawk blessing in recognition of George's background to the toasts made by Tyrus's best man, fellow wrestler Bully Ray, who hailed bravery in war and loyalty. As admirers marveled at the flawless blend of athletic flair, political chic, and spiritual reverence, video excerpts from the evening went viral globally under the hashtag Tyrus Tatum Tie the Knot, inspiring millions of views. The newlyweds sneaked away for a private lullaby performance following the cake cutting, which included a towering Black Forest confection sprinkled with edible gold leaf. George watched with tears in his eyes as Ariana performed an a cappella rendition of You Raise Me Up in a lighted alcove, her voice echoing off marble pillars. The hush speaker system took their whispered words to empty corners of the auditorium as he embraced her when she was done. Buses took guests to an after-party at a repurposed art warehouse downtown as the clock struck 2. There, surrounded by LED installations and plush velvet couches, friends and family recapped favorite moments: Ariana's gospel crescendo, George's clip-tied trunks, the unexpected Bush cameo, before dancing until dawn. Pop art murals on the walls framed lounge seating and portable bars serving signature cocktails, such as The Sweetest Submission and Funk and Faith Fizz. Wedding trends specialists predicted a boost in gemstone bands and festivities with a religious theme as hashtag Tyrus Tatum Tale became a social media craze by dawn. Influencers praised it as the model for contemporary marriage, where sensationalism meets sincerity, spectacle serves substance, and the unexpected joining of worlds becomes the ultimate expression of love. George and Ariana's honeymoon, which began the day following the celebration, was a microcosm of their relationship's harmony between opulence and true connection. They took a first-class flight to Cabo San Lucas, where they were met by a private mansion atop a cliff with a view of the Pacific. The pair dined by candlelight on a balcony covered in bougainvillea as the sun sank, turning pastel skies into blazing orange. George toasted to new beginnings in the ring of life, his voice warm under the cool ocean breeze, while Ariana's gentle laughter blended with the sound of the waves. They shared memories of early heartbreaks and childish antics as they sank into the infinity pool under the stars that night. These were moments that were rarely captured on camera or in front of an audience, but they were crucial to the relationship they developed. Their agenda combined self-reflection with adventure. In the mornings, they paddled through secret sea caverns, with George skillfully navigating them through severe seas and Ariana's fragile arms maneuvering the kayak. They went on vineyard tours in the new wine country of Baja in the afternoons, tasting roses and Malbecs, comparing notes and giggling when George said his palate was still a work in progress. Private songwriting sessions took place in the evenings, with Ariana strumming a borrowed guitar while George penned lyrical lines about the triumph of love and the anchor of faith. By the end of the week, they had collaborated on 2 original gospel country fusion songs, which they intended to include on their first joint album. Their collaboration was the result of their mutual interests. Meanwhile, paparazzi photos of the pair walking hand in hand down the beach were used to spread the word about the honeymoon. While faith-based blogs commended Ariana for leading George to a more profound spiritual path, gossip websites featured titles like Giant of the Ring Goes Soft on the Beach. In just 24 hours, the hashtag Tyrus Tatum Takes Cabo generated over 12 million impressions on social media. The monogrammed towels with their initials M inscribed on them, the customized flip-flops with the wedding date engraved on them, and the subtle carved silver band that Ariana wore on her right hand to represent their shared dedication to community service were all scrutinized by fans. Even wrestling forums, where people usually talk about finishing techniques in kayfabe, were ablaze with congratulations and conjecture over whether George's new hymn recordings would make their premiere during his next panel. 3 charitable events upon their return home demonstrated the couple's intention to use their marriage for the greater good. Using their common experiences of overcoming hardship, they first co-hosted a benefit concert at Houston's Hobby Center called Love and Power. Ariana led her gospel choir in soaring renditions of I Will Trust in the Lord, and George gave a keynote address about mentoring and the value of giving people second chances. The money raised helped support ministry and communications students at Texas Southern University by funding scholarships. They then went to Detroit for a charity bowling competition, which George organized in honor of his late cousin's passion for the game. The competition generated money for urban youth centers, highlighting the couple's dedication to problematic neighborhoods. Celebrity bowlers included Impact Wrestling veterans and former Fox News co-workers. That month, their last collaborative event was an unexpected pop-up in an Atlanta women's shelter. Ariana had discreetly arranged for gospel brunch and voice reclamation counseling sessions with local organizers. George showed up with a truck full of exercise gear, including resistance bands, free weights, and punching bags. He was leading a program called Fight Your Fears, which included motivational speeches and self-defense training. He talked candidly about his personal struggles with self-doubt and attributed his increased confidence to Ariana's encouragement. A former champion wrestler bowing his head in prayer before an unplanned freestyle rap on perseverance inspired women who battled trauma in silence, according to the shelter's director, who subsequently called the day transformative. The couple's personal routine took on a new cadence during these activities. With family members spread across 3 time zones, George's parents in Texas, Ariana's siblings in Chicago, and mutual acquaintances in Ghana, where Ariana had grown up before relocating to the United States, mornings started with sunrise coffee and group Zoom prayers. Before the hectic pace of public life returned, they grounded themselves by taking turns sharing lists of appreciation. Exercise sessions ensued. Ariana challenged George to yoga stretches that relieved his persistent shoulder stiffness while George taught him the fundamentals of lifting. In keeping with Ariana's experience in holistic nutrition, breakfasts consisted of protein smoothies mixed with fresh fruit and chia seeds. The atmosphere had changed by the time Tyrus returned to Fox News on Monday morning. He came into the studio as a husband who was motivated by a common goal rather than as the lone warrior. The panelists teasingly asked him, "How's the honeymoon, champ?" He smiled and replied, "Never felt stronger." Later that afternoon, Ariana joined him for an exclusive interview on the network's lifestyle section, where they talked about marriage as a collaborative art and a covenant. The segment received the greatest demographic ratings of the hour, demonstrating how much viewers wanted to see this real-life look at their union. Regarding wrestling, Impact Wrestling included a festive sequence with clips of George's wedding highlights accompanied by choir vocals by Ariana in an upcoming pay-per-view. When the vignette was shown prior to a championship game, cries of Mr. and Mrs. Tyrus. The tickets sold out in a matter of hours. As they teased a possible tag team segment in which Ariana may perform live entrance music, a first in wrestling history, commentators pondered whether Tyrus might surprise his bride by making a presence in the ring. The couple's dedication to privacy, which is at the heart of their marriage, stayed constant throughout it all. They decided that some moments, late-night prayers, spontaneous laughter over internal jokes, would always be sacred, even while the rest of the world could celebrate their union. George Murdoch and Ariana Tatum set an example for a contemporary marriage that valued both spectacle and spiritual depth by striking a balance between public celebration and private seclusion. George and Ariana resumed their regular routine on the Monday following their honeymoon, but a fundamental change had occurred. They had started drafting plans for cooperative businesses behind the scenes that would further unite their worlds. They discussed ideas for a project they provisionally called Faith, Fights and Funk over late-night phone conversations in their home studio, which was covered in gold records and ring posters. The idea, a weekly streaming series that combines George's wrestling training, Ariana's gospel concerts, and open discussions about faith, marriage, and tenacity. They plan to tour historic wrestling rooms, church basements, and small-town gyms, presenting tales of regular couples discovering strength in their union. Their goal was to create a hybrid that expressed both religion and athletics, without being exclusively religious or athletic, by depicting hardships and joys in equal measure. Within days, their first brand partnership was released. The Power and Grace collection, which included wrestling tights with pearl-embroidered trim and compression shirts emblazoned with Ariana's favorite Bible passages, was introduced by sportswear behemoth Titan Apparel. Sales exceeded internal predictions when George performed deadlifts in the product launch video while Ariana sat on a ledge and sang ad-libs of Stand By Me. Churches shared pictures of youth group members sporting the Power and Grace snapbacks, while fans shared unboxing videos of the co-branded hoodies on Twitter. The brand quickly grew to include yoga mats and sparring gloves enhanced by gospel choir patterns as retail buyers rushed for restocks. Their initial success gave them the confidence to look for other synergies. Chatter on social media, meanwhile, became uncontrollable. There was a lot of conjecture on wrestling message boards. Would Ariana be ringside at the upcoming pay-per-view? Religious forums discussed whether George's marriage to a gospel star had given him new moral authority to analyze political matters on air. Both sides' detractors voiced their opinions. Concerns were raised by certain religious leaders over the blending of religious music and ministry with secular spectacle, such as high-octane wrestling characters and cocktail bars at weddings. On the other hand, gospel remixes of entrance themes and family prayers that interrupted kayfabe infuriated purist wrestling fans. These critics saw the marriage as a clash between two worlds that could never be reconciled. However, George and Ariana brushed off the suspicion as normal noise. They had survived more controversial allegations when their relationship was just a murmur on the internet. Conversely, the majority of responses were extremely positive. Searches for Tyrus' wife increased by 150%, according to streaming data, indicating that a cross-section of worship leaders, sports enthusiasts, and political nerds were tuned in to see how well they got along. Their sincerity and the breaking down of silos between entertainment genres were praised in feature articles that ran in People and Essence magazines. They were even presented by late-night hosts as the power couple that nobody knew they needed. A big streaming platform offered Faith, Fights and Funk a development agreement with a 10-episode order in a matter of weeks. In order to combine technical skills from both fields, George and Ariana commissioned a production team that includes former gospel stage directors and WWE camera operators. The pair encountered additional difficulties as pre-production intensified. Still reeling from the release of her #1 record, Ariana found herself alternating between studio sessions and site scouts for Faith, Fights and Funk. George balanced late-night writing sessions for their show's scripts, Impact Wrestling promotional tapes, and daily Fox News rehearsals. They came together around a rigid schedule to avoid burnout and to respect the haven they had established on their honeymoon. Sundays were off-limits for media appearances or filming. Rather, they refueled for the next week, had a small potluck breakfast at home, and went to church services. The duration of their marriage was established by this holy Sabbath observance, which strengthened boundaries that had escaped them in past partnerships. Family life also started to grow. Ariana shared on social media that she was expecting their first child shortly after she got back from Cabo. The announcement sparked a new round of happy posts. Fans sent sincere prayers and congratulatory gifts with hashtags like #Tyrus Jr. and #BabyMurdoch. George was seen holding Ariana's belly while birds pecked at the patio in the announcement video, which was recorded in their backyard kitchen with the morning sun shining through. Their sincere happiness, unadulterated by editing cuts, struck a profound chord with the audience. The pair clarified that although they enjoyed being in the spotlight, they wanted to protect their child from undue attention. They engaged a midwife collective, created a birth plan based on faith and affirmation, and pledged to keep the baby private for the first few months of life. But beneath the surface, there was a complicated web of emotional and practical adaptations. They had to rely on a growing support staff as their shared calendar filled up with pre-production meetings, sponsorship shoots, and press junkets. In order to plan her music tour dates and Faith, Fights and Funk photo sessions, Ariana employed a full-time assistant. When George went for panel appearances, he hired a personal trainer to keep him in shape. They interviewed nannies and childcare consultants over the course of several weekends, drafting contracts that struck a mix between discretion and active participation. Often lasting into midnight, late-night strategy meetings were interspersed with decaf coffee and hushed prayers. They accepted that these stresses would either strengthen or weaken their marriage, and they decided to face each challenge together rather than alone. Their partnership created new financial opportunities. Outside investors seeking to capitalize on their cross-genre appeal were drawn to joint ventures in fitness, fashion, and faith-based media. Under the name Murdoch and Tatum Ministries, venture investors suggested wellness retreats that included boxing exercises, gospel meditation, and volunteer activity. They were approached by tech businesses to serve as brand ambassadors for everything from wearable health trackers to educational apps that use interactive storytelling to teach scripture. They carefully screened every offer. They turned down offers that were exploitative or inconsistent with their basic principles. They maintained the integrity that first attracted followers to them by focusing on projects that respected their craft and their faith. The trajectory is evident as Section 4 comes to an end. Tyrus and Ariana have turned a surprise marriage announcement into a complex union that defies classification and expectations. Their next chapter, which will be covered in the section that follows, will focus on how they handle public disputes, safeguard their expanding family, and keep honing the delicate balance between responsibility, love, and showmanship in a world that is ravenous for real tales. No public relationship can be free from controversy, and Section 5 demonstrates how George and Ariana persevered through difficult times without losing sight of one another or their basic principles. Social media critics rushed to accuse Tyrus of betraying his gospel music bride's humanitarian ideal when Fox News was criticized for his on-air comments regarding immigration policy earlier this year. By virtue of their marriage, headlines said Ariana supported her husband's position. Rather than backing down, the pair hosted a joint virtual town hall that was broadcast live on both of their channels. George began with humility, admitting the emotion in his voice but making it clear that he had never intended to minimize the hardships faced by immigrant families. Then, highlighting her conviction that faith invites us to both compassion and open communication, Ariana shared her own ministry experiences hosting refugee family dinners in Houston. Their open discussion went almost 90 minutes over schedule, which is uncommon for cable news, and the tone on social media changed from indignation to admiration. Their shared dedication to subtlety rather than sound bites was noted by viewers. The publication of blurry pictures of Ariana backstage at an Impact Wrestling pay-per-view by a gossip website sparked a second scandal, raising questions about whether or not she was abusing her fame for publicity. The gossip circulating around Mrs. Tyrus's use as a stunt partner might have stoked rumors, but Ariana made a succinct statement instead. No money was exchanged, and she had discreetly gone to support George's first live performance of the theme tune he had commissioned for Faith, Fights and Funk. She shared behind-the-scenes videos of the production meeting, highlighting their active cooperation as she reviewed camera angles and he checked microphone levels. Supporters praised the openness, while unbiased onlookers saw a married couple establishing a creative business instead of pursuing tabloid attention. Clearly defining digital boundaries was necessary to safeguard their expanding family. A media-free zone was established around their home IP addresses by their publicist. Geofences were added to their personal images to avoid location tagging. Due this summer, their first kid would only be seen on official channels in voiceover or shadow, a strategy taken from famous couples who protect their young children from intrusive photographers. Social media managers kept an eye on comment areas, quickly eliminating offensive content and reiterating the community's respect-based rules. In a joint blog post, George and Ariana encouraged sincere inquiries while cautioning that unfounded rumors would not be accepted. Toxicological levels in comment streams decreased by more than 60% in a matter of days. In order to maintain demand and household sanity, they refined their week's choreography behind the scenes. Wednesdays were marriage evenings, which were unplugged dinners with soft lighting and no phones, while Mondays and Tuesdays were set off for individual careers, George's news panels, Ariana's recording sessions. Thursdays and Fridays became project days, with Titan apparel design sessions, Fights and Funk production meetings, or Faith taking place. On Saturdays, they set aside time for family wellness activities, which included yoga and wrestling-style conditioning exercises that alternated, devotional study, and a cooking class where they tried out dishes from Power and Grace. Church services, family brunch, and a Zoom group prayer circle with faraway family members and longtime friends kept Sundays holy. Their high-octane endeavors were able to thrive without burning out because to this ritualized regularity. The treatment of mental illness became a shared focus. George kept going to his longtime sports psychologist, who is currently a part of a couples program, to deal with performance anxiety that surfaced after Ariana joined him in the public opinion ring. She documented her own internal difficulties as she juggled her maternal instincts and job ambitions during her bi-weekly sessions with her spiritual counselor. They went to marriage retreats every 3 months that focused on faith-based partnerships. They advocate on their streams to destigmatize counseling in both the religious and sports communities, and their therapists commended them for seeing therapy as preventative maintenance rather than a last option. Collaboration was also necessary for financial planning. Their combined companies produced profitable streams, including speaking fees, clothing royalties, and streaming rights for Faith and Fights and Funk. However, managing those gains without allowing wealth to override their morals required ongoing attention to detail. They engaged a values-based financial advisor with expertise in media families and ministries. They started holding regular finance and faith meetings every 3 months, during which they discussed revenue projections, scholarship fund distributions, and gift quotas, 10% of net proceeds. By including a breakdown of charitable contributions in each fiscal report on Titan Apparel's website, they made their giving transparent and made sure that the earnings from Power and Grace went directly to support charities in the community that supported their objective. Even with these rigid restrictions, spontaneity was still essential. Their relationship was maintained through private date evenings that included spontaneous ice cream runs and unexpected drag queen singing sessions in their living room. George planned a midnight cake in-bed breakfast for her 30th birthday, complete with gospel hymns performed by young people from the neighborhood church. These modest, happy gestures reminded them and everyone else watching that beneath the headlines and sponsorship deals, their marriage flourished on straightforward, loving traditions. Ariana surprised him the following morning with a handcrafted wrestling belt that read, "Champion of my heart." Tyrus and Ariana managed the delicate dance between love, duty, and showmanship through controversy, privacy measures, mental health care, financial prudence, and unplanned celebration. They turned possible scandals into chances for genuineness, reaffirming that their relationship is a true covenant based on mutual respect, faith, and unwavering cooperation rather than a show. Their first anniversary began with a low-key sunrise service that was only attended by close family members and a few friends. Under a canopy of jasmine vines, Ariana's choir sang "Great is Thy Faithfulness" while George Murdoch, who was still 6 feet 8 inches and towering over everyone, held Ariana's hand on the balcony of their Houston house. The scene perfectly captured what they had created thus far, a fusion of shelter and spectacle, strength and fragility, and a love that flourished on shared news as much as shared beliefs. Faith, Fights and Funk's first season debuted to overwhelmingly positive reviews in the weeks that followed. Watchers listened to programs about wrestling halls in Kansas City, urban ministry outreach in Detroit, and community gyms in Appalachia. Each piece included candid interviews with regular couples intercut with George's powerlift lessons and Ariana's gospel harmonies. The show's defining image, unity via learning each other's disciplines, was captured in the last episode, which was shot at their own church fundraiser and ended with Ariana teaching Tyrus a basic suplex while he taught her to sing a high note. In the meantime, Titan Apparel's Power and Grace collection entered foreign markets. Fans waited in line for cross-branded gym towels embroidered with their wedding date and limited edition snapbacks at their pop-up stores in Sydney's Surrey Hills and London's Shoreditch. At every destination, Ariana delivered bedtime prayers in pop-up prayer rooms, and George led spontaneous strength challenges, testing reps for charity. Their promise that every dollar collected had a purpose beyond profit was furthered by the proceeds, which were used to pay for music therapy programs in pediatric hospitals and sleeping mats for homeless shelters. Their family life took unexpected turns back home. On a Tuesday in late July, their daughter was born, weighing 8 pounds, 1 ounce. Ariana posted her first social media images, which were natural rather than glitzy portraits, showing George holding the swaddled infant in Ariana's cheek against his chest as dawn light streamed through the gauzy drapes. They acknowledged her heritage and his legacy by introducing her as Murdoch Jr. The pair vowed to raise her in an environment that would embrace both grace and grit in equal measure, complete with gospel choir rehearsals, weekend wrestling classes on junior-sized mats, and prayer circles. New behind-the-scenes content inspired Patreon subscribers and supporters. Dedicated fans were treated to private vlogs for a monthly charge, which included George instructing Murdoch Jr. her first weight set, Ariana teaching lullaby harmonies, and occasionally frank confrontations about bedtime rituals, which were always followed by on-camera reconciliations and apologies. Because viewers felt like honorary godparents and were immersed in the couple's genuine and unfiltered moments, the transparency increased fan devotion. Engagement on these personal videos outpaced their mainstream programming, according to metrics, demonstrating that genuineness may outshine even the most ostentatious production. Couples Courage Grants, microfunding prizes offered to couples who submitted stories of surviving terrible suffering together, were added as the second season of Faith, Fights and Funk began production. Recipients of the grants included immigrant spouses starting combined food truck ministries and former military couples re-establishing trust through mixed martial arts classes. In order to create relationships that went beyond the screen, George and Ariana offered mentorship calls during production breaks for each grant. The project demonstrated their conviction that influence went beyond amusement to include real empowerment. The invites multiplied on the speaking circuit. They gave keynote addresses at business conferences on leading with love, pastoral retreats on marriage as ministry, and athletic conventions on faith in the face of failure. Their presentations included multimedia clips, including Tyrus's highlight reels and Adriana's live vocals, followed by interactive Q&A sessions. Standing ovations and heartfelt testimonies were the audience's response. Event organizers praised the Murdoch's message for bringing together a variety of groups, including gospel choirs, sports enthusiasts, and evangelicals and progressives. George and Ariana secretly created plans for a family foundation in order to look ahead. It would support studies on couple dynamics in high-stress professions, including performance arts, politics, and sports, and was tentatively dubbed the Murdoch-Tatum Fellowship for Resilient Partnerships. They envisioned grants for faith-based couples, retreats in underserved areas, and scholarships for counselors who specialize in cross-cultural counseling. Their goal was to leave a legacy that would enable other couples to handle the spotlight with the same courage and humility that characterized their own path. Tyrus and Ariana find themselves at the nexus of love, work, and legacy as this chapter comes to a close. By fusing the domains of newsrooms, sanctuaries, and wrestling rings into one compelling narrative, they have successfully used spectacle to highlight content. Their union has turned into a model for prospering in the face of public scrutiny, demonstrating that love based on respect and a common religion can withstand scandals, grow businesses, and raise babies. And they stay united by that defining reality as they look to the future, whether it is a new streaming business, a global foundation, or the pure delight of seeing Murdoch Jr. take her first step, because they are stronger, smarter, and incomparably more unstoppable together than they ever were apart.